He interviewed several of them, didn't he? And they couldn't tell him.
I think he tried.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people he actually
Yeah.
talked with.
So when he went out there, he just had to say a prayer when they hired that taxi, and God stopped their taxi at 3 different locations. Yeah.
Yeah, they made a pile of stones at each 3 places. The last time, they were losing confidence in that it might be the problem with the taxi and not God stopping it, so they only put 1 stone each in that pile.
Okay, and the last one maybe.
Just, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember him coming back and talking about this trip, or what's one of the earliest discoveries he was telling you about?
Well, he felt sure that that site was Noah's Ark, and he wanted to do more exploring. He found drogue stones that he said were tied onto the ark, and that they didn't all come off in the same place. One of the main things I remember from the earlier talks is experiences they had at Dobizet in the hotel that they stayed in.
Yeah.
Because the people weren't really friendly.
Yeah.
He said they tried to rob them. They came to their room, and which was on the 2nd floor, I think. And in their escape, they lost some of their film, that some of it was left behind.
Tied some bed sheets together and went out the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people were banging on the door and chasing them. At one point, they were running, and someone was chasing him, and Ron grabbed a person and beat up on him.
It was a soldier.
He was a soldier?
Yeah.
From the police.
Danny Ronnie told me that.
He was not one of the people that were trying to rob him.
No.
But it was dark.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see, and
yeah.
just. But he spent the time in the police station. They went after that playing a card game.
They went to the soldiers' headquarters there. Yeah, and played cards with them there or whatever. They thought it was funny that this old man had taken down both of them, these 2 soldiers that kind of came after the 3 of Ron and his 2 sons, and they were laughing. This old man had taken them out. But, so, okay.
Ron said, I cleaned his clock.
Yeah. So he came back and told of that exciting experience, and then just the next year in '78, he went to the Red Sea crossing. Did he talk to you about that, the early years?
Yes, he talked about how so many people read the Bible and they think that the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea at the Gulf of Suez. But that's a very shallow place, and it doesn't really fit with the Bible story. And he said nobody had ever found artifacts there in all these years. Ron was quoting Galatians 4:25, saying that says Mount Sinai in Arabia. And he had read in another place about Moses fleeing from Egypt and fleeing toward Arabia. And he said, I would like to go take scuba diving lessons so that I can dive in the Gulf of Aqaba, because if Arabia is where Moses was going to, it would have to, the crossing site would have to be the Gulf of Aqaba and not the Gulf of Suez. And Ron was reading his Bible a lot, and he really trusted his Bible, and he started looking for a place for scuba lessons. And so when he signed up for the scuba lessons, sometimes, well, he and his sons both, and Michelle, all taking scuba diving lessons together, starting out in a swimming pool and then going on from there. He asked me to come and cover for him when his lessons were scheduled on days he had to work. So on those days, he would call me from home, and I would go to the hospital and stay there until his scuba diving lessons were over. Then he'd come and relieve me, and I would go back home. And shortly after getting his license, and I have a copy of his scuba license.
Oh, okay.
He came back from a trip from the Gulf of Aqaba, scuba diving, with a horse hoof and let me hold it. And I thought that was exciting.
Yeah. And there's no horses in the Sinai Peninsula, so that had to be from Pharaoh's army.
Couldn't have come from a camel.
Yeah, right. Sure, so that's exciting.
And then he would go on other trips. Oh, he told me that he went down 205 feet, but that he couldn't stay down but 5 minutes because there was so much pressure he had to get back up. And he told me about finding chariot parts, chariots without wheels and wheels without chariots, and horse bones and human bones. And he would make another trip, and he would come back and say, Jesslyn, I found another pile of human bones. Then he'd make another trip and come back and say, Jesslyn, I found another pile of human bones. But there were people who were saying, oh, Ron just planted those things. It wasn't for real. But there was coral growing on a lot of things, and that takes a long, long time.
That's right.
And there is no way that Ron could have set that up.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, and then another discovery was going over to Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia. That was 1984. Do you recall Ron being taken prisoner at that time? Were you working with him at that time in 84?
Yes. I remember, I don't remember the exact date, but I was at work. He was supposed to come and relieve me, and he didn't show up. And I kept looking out the window if I could, so I could see where his car was being parked if he ever came. And I looked, and I never did see him, and I had to stay over and over and wondering what happened to Ron, and I did not know that he was still in Saudi Arabia.
My, okay. So he spent 76 days in prison there, unjustly, being accused of being a spy. Now, Ron was taken in prisoner in a way, or kidnapped in Turkey. This was 89 or 90 by some PKK Turkish rebels, and it was over 2 weeks or so. They were being hiked through the wilderness there in the mountains, and Ron said he almost died. So you recall anything about that incident, or?
He talked about that. It's been a long time since I thought much about it. But he told me that he had been to Turkey, and he thought they were going to give him a permit to excavate it, that he had wanted so badly to excavate that. I would see him drawing on paper what he would like to do, because he didn't want to destroy it as it was being dug into. And at one point he thought it would be best to have a glass covering over it. And he was making drawings for a glass covering from one end to the other. He said he thought it would be best to build this glass covering first, and then start excavating down one end of it and make a place to go down and through the entire ark and up out the other side,